I am so excited to have on the podcast today Karema Akilah. She is the founder of Genii DAO, which she'll tell us all about. It's really the future of education using Web 3.0 and blockchain technology, things that I'm sad to say I don't know much about, but I'm eager to hear Karema explain more about the magic and the possibilities of this educational approach. Karema is a longtime homeschooling and unschooling mom. She's in her 20th year of homeschooling, unschooling for the past 12 of those years. She has 6 children, graduated 4 of them. She has 2 more at home. And really, it was through her work with homeschooling her kids that led to her interest in Web 3.0 and blockchain technology, and ultimately led to the creation of Genii DAO. So I'm excited to hear more about that evolution and excited to hear again about the future of technology in this decentralized way. Karema Akilah, welcome to the Liberated podcast.
Oh, Carrie, this is really a dream come true. I'm like fangirl here. So thank you so much for having me on your podcast.
I'm so glad you're here. We had the opportunity to meet in person earlier this year at ASU GSV conference in San Diego, where you talked more about Genii DAO and your work with Web 3.0. Tell us, Karema, though, how you got started from the very beginning in choosing homeschooling and choosing an unconventional educational approach for your children.
Great place to start. So I'm a former public school teacher from the state of Maryland, right? I am a proud HBCU graduate. I graduated from Morgan State University in Baltimore, the best HBCU. We won't even contest it. And I began teaching in Maryland's public schools. Shortly after that, my husband and I discovered that we were pregnant with our first. And that child was born in late December. And so I became a stay-at-home mom. And because he has a late birthday, he could not start school, right, that September when he was 5. But he began reading at the very early age of 3. Nothing really that I did, just one of those people that, came here pre-wired for reading. And so because at that time, they would not allow us to test him, to start him in public school earlier, and he was already reading, I knew that that would be a recipe for a mess if we were to wait and put him in kindergarten when he was already doing first, second grade level work. So that's how we began homeschooling. So at first, we began using the very gentle approaches that were taught by a man by the name of Dr. Glenn Doman from the Institute for the Achievement of Human Potential in Philadelphia, where I'm from. And I loved Dr. Doman's approach because he said, you only teach when you're joyful and your child is joyful. You only offer what it is that your little ones love, right? And you stop before they want you to stop. So you start in joy, you continue in joy, and you end in joy. So that's how we began, right? Even before we were, quote, officially homeschooling. Well, that went great until, the kids start to get a little bit bigger, right? When they got to be around like 6 or 7 and they start losing those baby teeth. And I said, you're looking kind of older. Maybe we should put away, listen to this, maybe we should put away the joy and the fun, and maybe we should start doing real school. And so that's when I pulled my degree off the shelf and I put on the teacher hat. And I mean, Carrie, we did school at home. We did school at home. I created the schedule and I had the little bell that I was ringing in between subjects. And I even dressed my children in uniforms to come to the dining room table. They looked like they worked at Target or Walmart. I did that. And we did that for many years. I started multiple different co-ops. We were doing classical education. And we were doing a co-op and coming home and doing assignments. And my kids, while they were academically successful, they were lethargic learners. They were disengaged. They were burnt out. I was burnt out. I had this perpetual lump in my throat because I felt like a failure, right? Because something was missing. I'm a teacher, right? I'm supposed to be able to do this. And we were doing it, but there was something that was missing that I couldn't put my finger on. And then when I looked out into the homeschool landscape and I saw these families that were over there in the distance and they were just chilling, they They were carefree and their kids were doing things that they loved to do. And, the moms weren't over there looking crazy like I was. And I said, well, what are they doing? And then when I leaned in and they said they were unschooling, I said, oh, no, that's that thing I said I would never do, because that's that unparenting thing. I can't do that. But I couldn't stay where I was. So I said, you know what, guys? I sat my kids down and I said, on Monday, because everything has to start on Monday, right? You can't start in the middle of the week. If you're a good teacher, you got to start on Monday. I said, on Monday, we're going to do this new thing. And we're going to do classical mornings and delight-driven afternoons. And my younger ones were like, okay, Mom, that sounds great. The older one said, I don't trust her. So I said, come on, guys. So Monday morning, they sat down. I came down the steps with my curriculum in the crook of my arm, and I taught them, right? Classical education. Then after lunch, we turned it over to them, and they were in charge of their own delight-driven learning. And Carrie, that light that I saw when they were younger children, back when we were doing learning rooted in joy, that light came back on, right? And I said, oh, this is what it could be like, right? And so they were following their own interests and they were doing things that they loved to do. But I was only willing at that time to allow my children to be delighted, to be curious, to be joyful, to be authentic from 1 to 3. Then this strange thing happened, Carrie. One morning, came downstairs, and the children had begun delight-driven afternoons before breakfast. And right there, I had a whole entire parent-teacher conference in my head. The teacher said, oh, no, it is not time for all of that joy and all that happiness and passion. Put that away. Tuck that curiosity in your back pocket, sir. It is time to sit down and let me teach you. But the mother in me said, now, wait a minute. Isn't this what we want? So that's when the mom retired the teacher. And that really is when our deschooling took a shift into unschooling. And we haven't looked back since.
Oh, I love that story, Karema. So what happened sort of in those days and weeks following your embrace of unschooling?
That's a great question. Around that time, my husband was diagnosed with leukemia. And that meant an hour drive to the hospital, a 6 to 8 hour stay for blood work and chemo, and then an hour drive back. That meant that I was away from the children. That meant that I was not there to get in the way of their joy and their freedom. That meant that they were able then to dive deep into those interests without my fears in the way. So during this year, there were times when we would bring the kids to the hospital with us, and I was so grateful. And I remember saying this as I was pushing my husband in his wheelchair into the hospital. I said, I'm so grateful that we have deschooled, because I would have lost my mind if I was trying to keep up with the expectation of a traditional school experience. And that's when I really appreciated unschooling and the freedom and the autonomy that it gave us. So my husband passed away a year after chemo. So in 2016, he passed. And that's when the reality set in. And the reality was, okay, wait, I have been a stay-at-home mom for 16 years at that time, right? He was the sole breadwinner. And I said, well, if I have to find full-time work, what am I going to do with these kids? We were homeschooling in Pennsylvania at the time. And according to PA law, you cannot drop off your kid, full-time at a co-op or even at a friend's house and have that other family homeschool your kid. And so I said, well, there's got to be a solution. So I began looking for unschooling schools that were near us, because I saw my kids thriving in this environment and I didn't want to let that go. Well, the nearest Sudbury school was an hour north or an hour south, and that didn't work. So I said, I need to create something that would allow my kids to continue this way of learning, and any other kid who might not be able to have two parents, right, at home, or a parent at home that can provide this way of learning. So that's how the idea of the Genius School began.
So this is where you start to lose me, Karema, when we start talking about Web 3.0 and
Yes.
blockchain. And I know that you've talked about this before, that this was also really new to you, but of
It
course,
was.
as a self-directed, self-driven learner yourself, you were able to find your way. So maybe you could help the rest of us
Yeah.
figure out what it was that you discovered.
So the transition into Web3 began with technology, right? So there's Web2, which is what all of us are experiencing right now. Then there's Web3, and I'll explain what all of that is in just a second. When my husband, before he passed, when we were in the hospital one day, I called home to check on the kids, and they were having a ball. And I said, guys, you got to write down what you're doing, because the evaluator is coming at the end of the year. And I'm not there, to capture your learning, because without a centralized curriculum, how am I going to know what everyone's doing, right? And I'm not really there as much as I wanted to. They didn't write anything down. Of course they didn't. And I remember hanging up the phone, and I said out loud, I wish there was a way that they could take their phone, take a picture or video of what they're doing, add a school subject, type in a narrative description, maybe even tabulate how many hours you spent on it, right, for your transcript, and then save that, and then make that visible to an evaluator. To which I heard a voice say, why don't you build it? And I was like, me build that? My husband, my late husband, was a developer. So I was, kind of understanding what that meant. So when he passed, I hired a developer, and that was the first project that I created. It was the developer that said to me, I think you might have a use case for blockchain. Now, this is where we enter into Web3. Okay, now we're going to hold hands, and we're all going to cross the street together, okay?
Yes, please.
So this is perfect, because I host a talk called Meet Me at the Corner. And it really is a bringing together of folks on Unschooling Avenue and Web3 Boulevard. So we understand what I just said as far as how to document that kind of learning, right? In an app. Okay. To bring it over to the other side of the street into Web3 Boulevard, blockchain. You're already using blockchain in some areas of your life. You just don't know that you're using blockchain. So what blockchain is, and this will be a very high level, very top, right, cursory definition. It is an immutable ledger, which means when we document a transaction on blockchain, then I can't change it and you can't change it without me knowing that you changed it or you knowing that I changed it. Okay, so we good so far? You with me?
So far, so good.
Okay, good. So my developer said, now mind you, at this point, I'm like, blockchain, what is that? What are you talking about? So I'm at the same place, right? He said, when you take student learning, there is a transaction that happens between either a facilitator and the learner, or whatever technology and the learner, right? There is a transaction. There is the acquisition of knowledge that learner receives. That could be documented on blockchain. And then the blockchain technology could be used as a validator to colleges, universities. What's happening now is some colleges or universities don't believe me when I create my parent-created transcript to say that my children did these things, they earned these credits. Even when I show them the app and I show them the pictures that we've taken and the videos, if I'm an unschooling parent issuing that transcript myself, colleges are saying, it might be helpful to us if we have someone else to validate what you said, right? You with me so far? Okay.
Yes, for sure.
What could be possible in the very near future, like is already happening now, is that this technology called a smart contract, which is something that sits on top of the blockchain, could be used to credentialize, verify, third-party validation that my kid did exactly what I said they did. Don't believe me, believe the technology, believe it or not. So What we're doing with the Genii app, and shout out to my friends over at Vela, because they're the ones who awarded us a micro grant to even upgrade Genii from its initial offering. What we're looking to do is to add 2 things to our Genii app. First thing is AI, artificial intelligence, right? So you've heard of ChatGPT, yes?
Yes, I love chat.
Okay, good. We're good so far. You're using it, yes?
Yes.
Okay, great. Now, do you see how if we were to take the Genii app, right, and add AI to the app, do you see how AI could be used to translate what learners are authentically doing when they're learning in freedom and joy? AI can be used to translate that into language that the states can understand.
So could you give me an example, Karema, of what that might look like?
I have to look no further than right here in my own home. So we're in the state of Georgia right now. And like I said, I've unschooled in Maryland and Pennsylvania. I've written transcripts. I've gotten kids into community college before, no problem. Well, we're in a new state now. So my son, the one I just graduated, he wanted to attend the local community college. I said, son, I got this. This is what I do. I not only coach other people in doing this, I've done this for your older siblings. Not a problem, right? So I create his transcript and I submit it. He's taken the AccuPlacer exam and passed. When the school gets his transcript that I created, they looked at that and they said, oh, he looks like an amazing student. And thank you for this app. And I see the pictures. That's very creative, they said. But then they said, I'm sorry, but the titles that you have here do not match the titles that we accept. And I said, titles that you accept? This is a new one, but okay, all right, I can do it. What are the titles that you accept? They said, we accept the titles from our Board of Regents. Board of Regents. So I go back through all of my homeschool documentation, right? Filing the declaration of intent to homeschool here in Georgia. And I'm scanning all of the text, looking for something that mentions titles on transcripts from Board of Regents. Carrie, it was not there. Then I called the Board of Regents and I said, I'm a homeschool mom. Can you please help me? Because I need to find the proper titles to go on my son's transcript. I speak with a lovely woman on the phone. She takes me to her website. We spend 45 minutes looking through the Board of Regents website to find the proper course titles. She didn't know where it was. So if she didn't know where it was, nowhere on the information that I receive as a homeschooler did that have any information for me. How was I supposed to know? This is where, if I had created the AI to know what the Board of Regents titles are, then the AI would have been able to read when I inputted in the app that my son, what did he do? He does a 3D printing, right? 3D printing, and he writes code. AI would have been able to translate to this exact course title that the Board of Regents accepts in their schools. So without that, guess what? My son was not able to attend their community college last semester, simply because I did not know that the Board of Regents had these specific titles. I didn't know where to find it. And by the time I did all of that, he had missed the deadline. That's where AI would have made the difference.
Yeah, so I love this. It's definitely simplifying and streamlining the transcript process, providing sort of an alternative transcript approach, particularly for homeschoolers who want to head into higher education. There's something, though, that strikes me as we're sort of feeding into this like anti-parent narrative, right? That somehow the parent issued transcript isn't good enough. And yet we know that homeschoolers are, widely accepted into colleges and universities, including some of the most selective colleges and universities. What is your sense of that? Is it just that some states it's easier to do that, some more difficult? I guess what is your thought process around parent-driven transcripts and this more AI-enabled process?
So I agree with everything that you just said. There's the school of thought within the self-directed learning unschooling community that says, you should accept what I say. If the state has granted me the right to homeschool my children and I get to choose to homeschool them this way, right? You should then accept what I say. And so there is a school of thought that says that we should not do anything outside of that, and we should force states and higher education to accept what we say. I mean, even on the high school level, right? If you are homeschooling your kids in high school in certain states, and then you want to put them in school, there's no guarantee that that high school will accept your parent-issued credits. That is of the discretion of the principal. The principal then looks at your curriculum, looks at your portfolio, and the principal will decide which one of your credits they will accept or not. So I get that. And, there's a part of me, the rah-rah girl in me wants to, raise my fist in the air too and say, yes, 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 let's fight the man, let's fight the system. At the same time, the reality is I got a kid right down the hall who was very sad that he was not able to attend a community college so that he can earn the credits that he needs in order to transfer to where he really wants to go. That was the rub for me. We're doing all of this just to get into the community college, let alone the four-year university. So it's an and situation. It's a yes and, a both and. There are those of us that, yes, are doing the work to make a parent-issue transcript acceptable and normalized. At the same time, if this technology called AI is available to me right now, and if I can use it to cause a difference, to make a difference for my kid down the hall today, then I'm going to do both. Yeah.
Right. And sort of play the game, right?
And
So
play the
there are
game.
these entrance requirements, just give
Yep.
them what they want while being true to your mission and
Exactly.
educational philosophy and approach. It strikes me too, Karema, that this technology and the apps that you've created goes beyond just homeschooling and unschooling to some of these micro schools and alternative learning models. You mentioned the Sudbury model of schooling earlier. Any of these alternative education environments that are unconventional, that don't look like a conventional classroom, that don't have traditional transcripts, but yet there's so much learning and discovery happening. Is that a part of your business plan as well?
It is to the degree that, of course, we have our own 5-pillar genius communities, our schools. And so the app is for any and everyone. Everyone can use Genii. And so two parts to that answer. One, yes, yes, and yes. Our 5-pillar genius communities happen in person in various states here in Atlanta and then in Maryland, Prince George's County, Maryland, very close to DC. We have 2 in-person full-time private schools. Then we have 2 schools that we're supporting in Kampala, Uganda, that are also genius schools over there. We have meetups that are happening around the country. And then, of course, we have our school meeting in the metaverse. The metaverse, now don't get scared. It's not the metaverse that requires the Oculus. It's not that one. It's a 2D metaverse. It meets on a beautiful platform that allows the avatars of learners to walk around. You can walk into separate spaces. It allows for a connection virtually that Zoom can't even begin to imagine. And so we just completed a whole year inside of the metaverse. Our learners were from all over the world, Canada, Poland, here in the US. Everyone used the Genii app to document their learning. But then, yes, it's also available for folks who are in Sudbury schools, Agile schools, other democratic schools, if it would be of benefit. And I'm also inviting them to join me in our DAO teams to make it better, right? It is not an exhausted app. This isn't as good as it's going to get. It's only going to get better when people tell us how to make it better.
So who is your ideal end user at this point? I have listeners and viewers hearing this story and thinking, okay, well, we're unschoolers or we embrace self-directed learning. Is this right for us? How would we use it? I guess what is the ideal user and how would they go about joining this community?
Perfect question. So if you are an unschooler, if you are not using a traditional curriculum, if you are outside of that, if you are learning in full freedom and authenticity, then the Genii app is for you. If you have learners who are in high school and you want to issue a transcript, the Genii app is for you. I tell folks you're going to create the portfolio while we're living the portfolio. If your kids are younger, the Genii app is for you. I remember what life was like, Carrie, before the Genii app. This is why I created, because you know how it is. You start your school year. Of course, as unschoolers, there's no such thing as starting a school year, right? But here we are, it's July, right? So if I take my kids to the art museum, right, in August, end of the year evaluation is not until the following May or June. What do I have to do? I'm digging through papers. I'm asking the kids, hey, anybody seen that pamphlet? Because I have to prove that we did music or that we did art or that we did social studies, right? And so I'm tearing up my house, trying to find this little itty bitty little piece of paper to prove that we did something, right? I remember that. I have 6 kids. So can you imagine what evaluation time looked like for me? So the Genii app is for anyone, either if you're unschooling around your dining room table, if you are doing it in your Sudbury school or doing it in your decentralized school, it's for you. The Genii app can be white labeled for any community to have its logo on it. That's available for you too. It can be tailored specifically to the needs of your country. That's what we're doing for our schools in Kampala, Uganda. And if anyone is interested, then they can email me at info@thegeniuschool.org. You can find us online at thegeniuschool.org. And then learn more about it. We'd love to give a demo. It is available for everyone right now. We're wrapping up our beta test of it. And I'm getting the feedback right now from families, from evaluators. I really want to play with the school district. I really want to play with a school district that says to me, we want to use the Genii app because it has a back-end feature that allows, first of all, me as the mom, any submission that I create, I get to decide if I want the evaluator to see it or not, right? So every submission doesn't have to be visible to the evaluator, but everything that I do click that visible to evaluator, the evaluator then gets to use my email as a login and then see all of the submissions that I have granted them permission to see. So for school districts that have high homeschool population, this could be something that could make it very easy for them to use for their portfolios. And the biggest thing, Carrie, is I'm a former teacher. If I am in the world of education and traditional school, and I have these families that are unschooling, and the family puts down math, we baked cookies. I don't quite know how math was happening while you were baking cookies. But if the Genii app tells me that this learner had to add fractions with unlike denominators, oh, now I see the math that you did when you were baking cookies. See? So that's the power of the Genii app.
Wow. Oh, I love it. It puts words to what we know as unschooling parents.
That's right.
That the sort of more mainstream education system can understand and recognize and accept. And that is true when it comes to transcripts that you might be submitting to higher education, or these portfolio reviews at the end of the year, or sometimes more frequently that homeschoolers in certain states have to submit. So this really just makes that whole process easier. I know, Karema, you mentioned the grant funding that you've received from the Vela Education Fund, the national philanthropic nonprofit that supports unconventional out-of-system learning models, including unschooling and self-directed education. So what is next for you now in terms of your business model? And you have this sort of initial funding. What does the future hold?
Oh, that's such a great question. So I'll talk about it in 2 categories, right? I'll talk about it in the Web 2 category, and I'll talk about it in Web 3 category, okay? So when I say Web 2, that's really, the life and the technology that we all understand right now, right? So for Web 2, what's next? Well, we have our Genii community. Genii community meets on the Mighty Networks platform. Genii originally began from members of the Genius School, right? We needed a place to meet and to, figure out all of the fun things we were going to do. But it began to evolve into other schools saying, hey, well, we want to be part of Genii too, but our kids aren't in a genius school. Our kids are in a different type of self-directed school. Can we come? Sure, come on. So Genii now has become this really fun place to celebrate the authenticity and freedom that comes with self-directed learning. So what's next inside of Genii is, oh my gosh, right now we have a challenge. It's called the Be It, Do It Challenge, right? Summertime is the best time to be an unschooler. Summertime is the best time to try out unschooling, and then you're just going to ease that on into the fall, right?
Yes, yes.
So to prepare for that, we're playing around with the Be It, Do It Challenge. Be the best that unschooling provides. Be authentic, be free, be connected, be creative. Take a picture of it and post it. Whoever has the most posts will win a cute little box. We're starting something called the 13-year sentence. As long as these United States have declared that there is a 13-year compulsory sentence for children, then guess what we're going to do? We're going to provide the utmost degree of authenticity and freedom in that 13-year sentence. So we started another contest that invites learners to create a phrase or a sentence that really embodies the freedom and the authenticity that we have as unschoolers. But then here's the catch. Within your family group, we're going to take that sentence and we're going to break it up so that you have to stand close together in order to be able to put the whole sentence together. What most people tell me is that what's missing for them is we don't get to be connected. So we're going to celebrate that connection, right, with this project. We're also having meetups all around the world. We are really here to have such a great time and celebrate this lifestyle. Like Carrie, I want to shout it from the rooftops, the freedom that we have and what it affords us. So meetups are happening. We're calling it popsicles and playgrounds. We're meeting up in the metaverse. All of that is going on. Now across the street on Web3 Boulevard in the Genii DAO, we have some other really fun things going on there too. We have a bunch of teams that we're inviting people to join us. We have the diversity team, right? In some of our self-directed learning schools, there are some members of the community that are missing. And we want to make sure that their voices are heard. Where's the voice of the unschooling dad? What about people who live in foreign countries? Like our two genius directors in Kampala, Uganda, are the only two people that they know of in their entire city that are speaking the words unschooling and decolonized parenting. Of course, we have this funding campaign that we're doing right now in the DAO. We're looking to raise $5 million in order to fund all 7 of our communities, in order to upgrade the Genii app, in order to create a sustainable funding system, not just for members of the Genius community, but for anyone that wants to open up a self-directed learning school. We're really excited about that. Then we have the accessibility team, the documentation team, the governance team, the technology team. If you like the Genii app and you want to enhance it, come on and join the team. For the DAO stands for Decentralized Autonomous Organization. All that means is a group of people who meet online. They have a common purpose and a shared crypto treasury. A group of people, moms, dads, adults, kids, facilitators, who all believe in decolonized parenting, deschooling, and unschooling. We meet on Zoom in our metaverse, in our Genii community, sometimes in person, often in person for our learning communities. Common purpose, celebrate freedom, authenticity, lead the genius conversation to invite more people into this lifestyle. But it needs funding. One of the things that frustrates me the most is when people want to open up micro schools that allow people like me, right? When my husband passed, I needed a place to take my kid, but I got 6 of them. And if I can't afford to pay this tuition, then I'm still stuck without a solution. But the flip side of that, if you're a facilitator in these schools and you're not able to earn a living, respectable wage, then that doesn't work either. And so creating a sustainable, renewable funding source. Now we're already doing that inside of nonprofit fundraising and the traditional ways that we know to raise funding. But when we cross the street into Web3 Boulevard, there are other decentralized finance tools called DeFi that we can play around with to see if there's a solution there.
So it's sort of like a Facebook group, right? That brings together like-minded people, say an unschooling Facebook group. But then the difference between that, which is you said would be Web 2.0, the difference between that and Web 3.0 is that we can add in that decentralized funding structure. Is that fair?
Yes, that's correct. And in Web 3, it's all about governance. And it's all about documenting that governance. So you get to submit a proposal and we get to vote on blockchain. So we vote, right? And that vote is conducted on blockchain inside of a smart contract. Now, stay with me. Let's just say, okay, let's say someone proposes all Genius directors will receive X amount per month when we raise $5 million. Okay, so that's a proposal. We talk about it, we hash it out, we come up with the number that our Genius directors will receive every month, right? We vote. Okay, now I'm gonna say some words, Carrie. Don't get scared, okay? When we vote by taking our crypto wallet. We use MetaMask as our crypto wallet. We connect our wallet to this voting platform that allows us to document our vote in a smart contract on blockchain. Okay. So, okay, you still with me so far?
I am still with you, yes.
Okay, great. Okay, now, once we make that vote, then we get to program. Now, it's not heavy code, okay? This is all light. We get to tell the smart contract, when we raise $5 million, pay out our Genius directors the amount that we've agreed to. And that is all embedded in the code. And so the minute that our wallet hits the cost, the price that we have set, then automatically the directors will receive what we have voted for them to receive. That happens automatic. It happens whether I change my mind or not. The only way we can change it is to go back onto blockchain and then to make a change. But everybody can see what the change was, because it is transparent, and the trust, this may sound crazy, but the trust is in the technology.
Yeah. So
does that make sense?
That is, I mean, that's sort of the basis of cryptocurrency generally too, that the trust is built in. So in your example of, say you raise $5 million based on the original contract, and then the directors get paid out, is that payout then in cryptocurrency, or could it be a variety of different funding sources?
Great question. It could be a variety of different payment sources. It doesn't necessarily have to be in Ethereum. It could be in USDC. That will happen in their wallet. They then get to determine how they want that to be received. They can receive that in fiat, which is the money that you and I have, in our banks, traditional currency. There's all sorts of tools that can be used. There's an organization that will pay your bills for you in crypto, right? They do the conversion for you, right? So there's all different types of tools that can be used. I don't want to get too deep into the woods because I don't want to scare people off. But if anyone is curious about this model, about this possibility, that's really what we're looking at, Carrie. We're creating the possibility of Genius directors, and not just Genius directors, but anyone who is running a micro school. We, of course, love the self-directed learning model, but we're creating the possibility of people being whole and complete. It really doesn't work for me when I hear people saying, I love this, but it doesn't allow me to pay my mortgage or my rent. And so as much as I would love to stay at this Sudbury school, at this Agile school, at this Genius school, I can't, because the amount that I need to live is too much for a parent to pay. Nor does it work for me when a parent says, this will make all the difference in the world for my kid. All the difference. I can't stay at home with them, or I need some support and I need to drop them off, but I can't pay that. And so that mama, that daddy, that auntie, that grandma is still stuck in something that doesn't work. That doesn't work for me. And in 2023, Carrie, I will no longer accept it. We're too smart. We're too curious. We're too abled of a people to continue to pretend that the emperor has on clothes, when in fact he does not. So I'm looking for people who are courageous enough to be like the little kid in that fable and say, y'all know he's naked, right? I'm looking for people who are courageous enough to say, y'all know that this doesn't work, right? And that there is a better way. And then to roll up their sleeves and to actually get in it and create a better way. That's what we're looking to do in the Genii DAO.
And create a sustainable way, right?
Absolutely.
We know that traditional forms of education don't work for the vast majority of children, and that you and I would say that self-directed education is the preferred pathway, but it can be difficult to sustain that. And so maybe we could just end, Karema, by sort of a final plug for unschooling and self-directed education. And I think you have such an important perspective on that, not only as a conventional public school teacher, you know, earlier in your career, to then homeschool mom turned unschool mom. Why do you think that self-directed education is the preferred educational philosophy?
I love this question. I love this question because sometimes you can't see the forest for the trees. Sometimes if something is so simple, then we disregard it simply because it doesn't sound like it'll work because it's just too simple. The reason why I believe that self-directed learning and unschooling is postmodern education, the reason why I believe and I know, and I'll stake my life on it, self-directed learning works for every single person. Why? Because you get to say how it goes. In the Genius conversation, I ask parents, teachers, kids, who do you never get to be in school, right? I've met with over hundreds of families for the past 3 years, and the answer is always the same. I never get to be free to be myself. Then when we talk about deschooling, I explain what does it mean to make something nothing? What are we making nothing? We're making nothing the thing that stands in the way of children, parents, and teachers being able to be who they really want to be, which is authentic and free. What stands in that way are the expectations of others, the expectations of traditional school, when you should learn built upon someone else's exploitation, what you should learn how. When we make that nothing, and the only thing that we bring into nothing is the learner, is that facilitator, is that parent, and I ask them, what matters most to you right now? Self-directed learning, right? It's like the wild card in Uno. You get to say how it goes, not the draw four. The draw four can be scary, but the wild card, you get to look at yourself. You get to look at your hand in Uno, and you get to say, who am I? Who am I right now? Who am I? Take the little one. Who am I right now at 5? What matters most to me? What am I ready for right now at 5? Oh, I'm ready to play. That's what I'm ready for at 5. Okay, now you're 15. What are you ready for right now? Okay, at 15, I'm ready to figure out, how do I get a job? How do I start a job? How do I, drive a car? So that's why I believe in self-directed learning. If you want structure, you can have structure. You can have as much structure as you want if you authentically need it. If you want to be free and learn, through baking cookies, you can do that too. You can learn when you want, how you want, with whom you want, if you want to at all. And I love the timing of self-directed learning. I call it PRN timing. That's a medical term. It's built on pro renata. As the situation arises, that's when I'll be ready to learn something. I get to learn based on my curiosity, based on what I love, and based on what I find relevant. So this is the thing that the world is looking for, Carrie. Parents, teachers, kids, they don't know the words. Their eyes are closed and their hands are in front of them, and they're groping and feeling for something that feels like freedom and authenticity and allows them to be who they can't be in school. They don't know the words unschooling. They don't know the words self-directed, but they do know how they want to feel. And that's what self-directed learning provides. So shout out to all of my fellow folks in the world of Sudbury schools, agile learning centers, all of us who are standing in the trenches, figuring it out, how to make it happen. Shout out to you, Carrie, for the work that you've been doing over the years and sharing the stories, traveling across this world to elevate the stories of people who are doing this work. It's only possible because of people like you.
Oh, so thank you, Karema. Well, it's a joy for me to be able to spotlight the stories of entrepreneurs like you who are creating these models and helping to make them more accessible to more families, and especially, of course, when it relates to self-directed education, which I very much embrace and want to encourage other people to embrace too, but also recognize that, to each his own, and that other
Yes.
families may have their own preferred educational philosophy as well. So, Karema, could you tell us again the best way for my listeners and viewers to reach out to you, to connect with you, to support your work? How can they do that?
Oh, this is my favorite part. So first and foremost, you can find us online at thegeniusschool.org. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram. We're now on Threads, believe it or not. I would love to welcome all of your listeners to the Genii community. That's our mighty networks. That's where all of us are. That's where all of the communication lies. A link to that is also on our IG page at the Genius School. It's also on our website. You can email me directly, info@thegeniusschool.org. And we would love to invite all of your listeners to come out and play with us. We are really excited about this upcoming school year, and we can't wait to have a ton of fun with everybody. So come on.
Well, I'm really excited about your work, and I thank you for giving me an introductory lesson on Web 3.0, blockchain, decentralized education, decentralized finance, just so much more to explore and discover there, and I appreciate this initial lesson. So, Karema Akilah, thank you so much for being on the Liberated podcast.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you, Carrie.